Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is John with Tommy's Top Picks here to bring you your weekly Flesh and Blood market update. Okay, cool. I thought for a second there my browser wasn't wide enough and there was a black bar like there was last week, I think, or maybe it was the week before. I noticed that in the thumbnail. I was like, dang it! I did not stretch the screen out far enough, leaving a black bar on the side. Yeah, silly things you notice. So this week we got to talk about a crazy market. Lots of things going on. We see some ups, we see some downs, we see some ups, we see some downs. It is just pure chaos. We haven't had this kind of chaos in a long time. So let's just jump in and get right into the boxes. So unlimited boxes, nothing really changed there. Not really interesting there. Unlimited case of WTR did jump 8.48% to 283 from 259, and we've seen some volatility there recently. So I'm wondering if this is kind of a lead up to a new kind of step on the ladder. We can maybe look at that, but there's a lot to look at, so we might skip that one because unlimited is unlimited. You know, they can make more of it. And they probably will. They'll probably do a return to WTR event at some point in the future, I would assume. So, you know, whatever. Moving on to first edition boxes where the real heat is. Look at this chart. It's like a freaking kaleidoscope. What is going on here? Everything's crazy. So last week we had basically just a pure crash, like market across the board crash, drive down. I guess that's not fair. We did have some up, but they were the more recent sets and they were not like remarkable up jumps. They were just sort of, kind of mini leaps up. Good stuff for later sets, but just different, not the same as old stuff going down, right? So old stuff kind of crashed last week. This week, it's a total mixed bag. We're seeing all sorts of changes. I guess start with WTR first edition boxes. It is up 4.62%. This price was false. The listing was real. We checked it. But when you go back and look at the history, it is one, gone, and two, not in the sales history. Another box is at a different price that was higher than this. So this 2002 kind of pricing was either set up there to get someone to believe that's kind of the market price, or was maybe a fake and got, refunded, or maybe it just got pulled down and never sold. One did sell above there, so maybe it's kind of weird. I don't know. But point being, that price is not an accurate actual data point for the sake of, it is for our charts, but for the sake of market sales and actual price data. So keep that in mind. But we did jump back up to 4.62% to 2,099 from this 2002 number, which is still down from 3 weeks ago and still down even further from 4 weeks ago. So still... It's, this is probably a classic dead cat bounce kind of scenario. I guess we'll see in a couple weeks. Maybe it returns, but it's kind of crazy to see these boxes so low. ARC is down as first edition, 8.92% to 1,009 from 1,099. Previous week was 1414, so just the crash continues on Arcane first edition boxes. Really crazy. Crew is up 11.78% to 399 from 352, back to where it was, essentially a few bucks more. So this was fake out. It just dropped and then came back up, or got bought up really quickly. I'm not sure. But kind of crazy to see that volatility in Crew first edition boxes. Does seem to be happening though. Monarch down 5.56% to 72 from 76. Sorry, this content is going to be kind of boring because there's a lot to say and they're just numbers being spewed at you. So I don't want to spend too much time thinking about it or talking about the trends and all that, but it's just a wild market. It's all over the place. So 72 from 76, I think, again, the lowest it's ever been. Mon first edition is, or since I've been tracking rather, Mon first edition is just out of trend right now. Not interesting, not popular. I don't know if that will hold up. There are some illusionist cards in there. I guess Mistveil doesn't give enough, but we didn't have the full previews until recently, so I don't know. The market may react to this as Mistveil full previews are now out. Some of those cards in Mon are probably desirable. I don't know if that sells boxes though, which seems to be where the disconnect is in the market. Boxes just don't sell, singles do, to a degree. I'll be honest, it's minimal, because I sell singles and the volume is way low. So I don't know if it's just because it's smaller game, smaller player base, or if it's because it does just doesn't sell that well, or I don't have the right things listed. All of these are possible. Everfest up 8.47% to 59 from 54. It's good. It's back way above the 50 area that it was at before. In fact, highest since February. So that's good for Everfest. We all know there's lots of Majestics in there. I wonder if there's something in the Mist Veil that is synergistic to Everfest. I could see that because I feel like that's Everfest's like kind of thing, is it's always synergistic to the new set. Outsiders 7.14% up, 84 from 78. This goes back to that conversation we had last week about the 2.0 stuff. Really great to see Outsiders performing so well. I'd love to see Uprising do the same, but I think, like I said, they were still trying to figure out print runs. I think they might have gotten a little overzealous on Uprising. Dynasty was the first to get some real kind of market heat, I would say, and continues to hold up well. That could also be power level and that sort of thing, because it's like an Everfest type product. Outsiders being a draft box that is seeing good strength in the boxes is a pretty good sign for 2.0 kind of change in plans and how they've managed the supply on the market. I think they need to tighten it up still. I think they know that, which is why I've already said after Outsiders seems to have less and less on the market to begin with, as we talked about last week. But it's definitely one of those things where it's good to see something at that age, basically starting to see the up J, the Nike check that I'm always talking about when it comes to these boxes. Dusk Till Dawn, on the other hand, is down 9.59% to 73 from 80. I don't feel too bad about that. We've seen these prices before about the same time back in that February timeframe. And it has held stronger for longer than most of the 2.0 products. So I don't feel it was 80 last week. The only thing that even matches in that range historically, like going back the past few weeks, is Heavy Hitters, which is a brand new set, right? So it just kind of gives you a hint, like it was strong to start. It has more room to fall than it has to go up in the time being, because there's plenty of supply. It's a relatively recent product, etc. Moving on to the cases to continue the Kaleidoscope of Colors. Maybe that will be the title of this, Kaleidoscope of Colors. Sounds cool. Crew first edition cases down 11.12% to $17.99 from $19.99. These are prices we've seen, I think, once before since I've been recording, and did not last long. I don't think it will last long this time, but honestly, we're seeing some crazy prices. These ARC and WTR prices, box prices not selling, and these not selling is crazy. Ooh, one thing I wanted to mention. There's a big sale tomorrow. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be tomorrow, for TCG Player, and this data is all from TCG Player. So I do suspect that some of this is people preloading the market with product to sell. And what happens is people keep underbidding each other, trying to have the best price, and they're going to keep fighting until things start selling. And over Friday night, and it might just only be Friday. It might be a one-day sale. So I don't know. Maybe that's part of what's happening here. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see after next week, because what will happen is all that should be flushed and or cleared by the following market update, because I don't think it will stay on there very long if it's selling. And if it doesn't sell, I think people will just take it down. But I could be wrong. We'll see next week. Everfest up 10 point. This is the cases 10.5% to 219 from 196. It's good. I mean, we're back to where we were a few months ago. It's still lower than we'd want it to be. This 240, 250, 260 range that we had a couple months back, where it was stable here for a long time. So we're still way low, but it's trying to fight back. That said, we've been on a downward trend for a couple months, like 3 months now. I see this more as like the dead count bounce, or the little, move too fast sort of thing. It went back up, but until I see a sustained upward trend, I'm not going to say this is a great situation. It is Everfest. We know this is a heavily printed product. Yes, they didn't come out with the unlimited version, and that just tells you how heavily printed it was. That's at this price, and they never came out with the unlimited version. It's crazy. Midst of COVID, what are you going to do? Uprising down 12.05% to 249 from 279. Previous week was 250, so it basically recovered. This is like a random jump up and then reverted to the mean, basically where it was before. I would say there's some volatility here, but it started with the downtrend with an up spike, just kind of catching it back and then going back down to the downtrend area. It's kind of flat down here though, so I don't really see this as too big of a deal at this point. Again, I think it's just reflection of the cases versus boxes market versus singles market, honestly. Dynasty up 9.44% to 339 from 307. Not much to report there. It is nice to see a 10% jump on Dynasty. It's been a while since we got to this area, or since we were at this area, I guess on the way down from release. So we're just seeing some upward pressure on the cases. Again, just supply demand sort of dynamics playing out in the market. Misty did go down 13.68%, which we predicted last week when we saw this price. It made no sense. It was cool to see a high pressure situation before release, but the reality is it will always come down to map at release, even with a lack of product at distribution, which was the case last week. Let me double check this week, see if it's listed again. It is not. Oh, it is. It is back on order at, okay, so that explains why the price dropped. Yep, it's back on order at distro. The one distro I have access to, it's still available. So that was a temporary glitch in the system or something. I don't know. Maybe they didn't want the price to go too high. No idea. Or maybe they were playing games. You know, those distros, they do that sometimes. Anyways, I don't have cards to share because the Marvels are kind of boring. Not much going on. A little bit of downward trends. I did look through it just to see if there's anything notable. Dragons are still cheap and that sort of thing. Nothing too special. The Mistveil ones are all sold out for the pre-sale, so we'll see how they go, but I imagine they'll be nutty when the time comes because waifu. But I did want to talk a little bit about the economic indicators that are out there. So today we had CPI data, and this is recorded the day before you're listening to it, so yesterday in your time. Basically, we got CPI data and Fed comments, and essentially what it boils down to is, steady as we go, rates up longer. A lot of people are expecting rates to come down sometime in fall. Might happen. I don't know that I would be 100% betting on that, but might happen. There was weakness. Basically, the core inflation was flat at like 0.3% gain month over month, which is essentially at that 3% mark, 3.6 or something mark that we've been at for months and since last year, I think. Basically, it is the best earnings that we've seen on the general profitability of companies since 2021. So that was a factor that was worth paying attention to as far as the earnings reports and that sort of thing that happened. And we did get not a consumer confidence, but a retail maybe sentiment report, which was actually a lot weaker than expected. So people are saying that's a bit of the softness. Markets rallied on this, saying that means the Fed's going to cut. The Fed is not going to cut for something like that, guys. I know people get excited. I don't know. People doing Wall Street stuff aren't listening to me, but it's not going to cut that simply, and one cut's not a big deal. Like the rallies and stuff around these announcements are starting to show like signs of insanity. The people that are doing the money moving are just overreacting to everything, and I know they overreact generally, but it's a little nuts. Like, okay, so we had some slightly soft data, not super soft, just slightly soft data, slight declines, and then the markets rallied like, yeah, the Fed's going to pump the system full of money. They're not going to do that. It's very clear. They're waiting for it to flush out. They keep saying it. I don't know how many times they have to say it or how clear they have to say it, but they're not going to just crash the rates and flush, and pump the system full of cash. Those days are done, people. They're done. It's not happening. We're not getting easy money back. If they were going to do that, they could have done that many other times before at all these other weak data points here and there that we've seen. Inflation is still sticky above 3%. They're still hardcore targeting 2%. I know some people have floated the idea, well, they could change that. That's true, they could, but they're not going to based on their messaging, and they try to message well in advance of anything funky, much less something as crazy as in unusual as changing the 2.0 marker. I heard some commentary. This is like Bloomberg, if you care. Just is one of the places I pick up information. But they were basically joking how America's policy on this is silly because, like, why 2.0, not 2.1 or 3 or 2.5? Like, all of those are valid numbers, and every other, well, maybe not every other major economies basically use ranges because that's sanity, like 1 to 3 or 2 to 3 or something, like some range. This 2.0 like hard number. Even when we had our interest rates at 0 for decades, we never hit that freaking number. It's ridiculous. It's like impossible to hit a dead target like that. And honestly, it should be a range. But the Fed will make sure everyone knows that's going to happen so far in advance that it's not interesting, right? That's their job. And so the reality is that 2.0 is staying. They're not just going to change it overnight for the fun of it. That would make so much chaos. And reality is they're still targeting that. So until we see major softening in the employment data, which we have not seen, as we talked about, I think last week or week before, or other major weakening in the economic system, there's just nothing they're going to change for the time being. There may be a cut this year. I think it's a very slim chance. I think it's possible because we are seeing some softening data. If it's further softening in like the middle of summer, then I think it's very possible, right? But that's a big if, especially considering it seems we keep getting these like bounce back type situations. Yes, the pocketbooks of regular Americans are hurting. Yes, consumer spending at kind of the lowest end of the market, the cheaper products, that sort of thing, is flagging. Car expenditures, so new car sales are flagging. That was one of the big factors that played into the CPI data this time. So there's a bunch of things showing weakness in the markets and tightness of individual pocketbooks, right? Which everyone is feeling. Everyone knows this, right? You go and you get groceries, it costs more than it used to. This mental price stickiness, even though this is one thing that I thought was really interesting. Wages, now this is like an average, so you got to take it with a giant grain of salt, but wages have been at record high gains for the past, I think it was 2 years I heard quoted, but way up, way more than historic growth for the past few years. And so even though people have more money coming in because of inflation, it's costing them more money to pay for things, so they don't feel like they're getting ahead. In fact, because the thing that sticks in your head more isn't the percentage of your paycheck of, a gallon of milk cost, but the price that you used to pay, right? Think about when Magic changed the price of the boxes or Pokemon or whatever, right? When they changed that price, it was such a big factor mentally for people to get used to. It took a long time for people to get used to new pricing. And so as a result, as everything shifted up, people got, annoyed, frustrated, etc., and continued to feel badly about it for long periods because they had that price fixed in their brain about how much it is. Even though they may be doing better off with, their income, you don't think of it in terms of ratios. You just think about what it used to cost, right? It's a very natural thing. Everyone does it. We don't realize we do it. It's just like a memory model thing that we do. And what we're seeing is that is having a negative impact on sentiment and general feelings. But this is the part that's weird. Despite everyone feeling like it's terrible, people are still spending at pretty high paces. The spending has not come down. Consumer spending has not come down heavily, despite the sentiment feeling bad. Everyone feels bad about it, but they're still spending. So I don't know how tight things are. I do know that in the commercial real estate, we're seeing more defaults in loans. I know that we're seeing more retail debt defaults happening. I saw some data on HELOC, which is home equity line of credit. So basically people that have houses using their house as a credit facility, which makes sense when you're trying to like upgrade your house or do something that adds value to it. But if you're using it to buy Magic cards, then that's silly. That's a bad idea and ends up costing you and being a problem, and you're laden with debt, and then eventually they'll repossess your house if you can't pay it. That said, it's one of those things that is going into default more and more, and there's more repossessions happening. So it does show some weakness in the market. Now it's leveraged parts of the market, places where, I guess it's kind of silly to do that. Maybe, actually, to be fair, and this is worth being fair, it's probably people that were thinking about selling their house, did a big upgrade, thinking they'd pay off the HELOC when they sold the house, and then the market became very difficult to sell houses in. And so they probably can't get the price they need to pay back the full debt load. That actually makes a lot of sense. That's probably the reality. And now they're like, well, screw it. I'll just default on it, declare bankruptcy or whatever, which is a terrible idea. But, sometimes you get stuck and there's no way out. Yeah, I guess that's about it for the general markets. I don't have much more to say about flesh and blood. This is some chaotic markets. These last 2 weeks, we'll keep watching it, see what happens. Oh, I didn't even show any charts. I guess I could show a chart. What chart should I show? Shoot, I didn't even think this through. He didn't think it through. And this is when he realized. So WTR, we talked about this, how we had this jump up here. This is unlimited boxes. And if we would see this come up to meet it, and sure as hell we did. Look at that. We did see it. So the case prices were way low and depressed for no reason that made any sense to me, and now they're at parity, which is kind of cool. So glad that chart was up. That saved my butt. Let's see, what else did we want to look at? Let's look at Nah, these are gonna be boring. Crew and art. Let's look at crew. Why not? It's been a while. Yeah, it's still boring. It seems dramatic when you're looking at the percentage in the heat map, but it's really just like, oh, nope, yeah, not much. Okay, fine. Anything else we want to see that was interesting? I think most of the stuff's going to be boring. Actually, let's look at Uprising because we're talking about that as a 2.0 product. And then we'll look at Outsiders. Okay, yeah, nothing really exciting there. That's the problem. These charts don't speak that much. Outsiders is looking cool. That's good. Look at the stairway to heaven. That's pretty sweet. I like that. I like that. And the cases are doing their little thing. It's still under parity though, or ARB opportunity, if you will. But the reality is that doesn't really work. So I stopped talking about that a long time ago. But yeah, we are seeing that kind of step ladder up. So that's neat for Outsiders. That's not bad at all. That's a pretty nice looking chart there. So anyways, I hope you guys are out there cracking packs, playing games, and enjoying this hobby that we all love. Until next time, have a good one.